stage left. The audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. The curtain rises and the players come out. Webs of light spinning from their mouths. Start looking, listen for a little while. Pay no attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow breathing in your blood. It's never enough. Program reality, double thing duality, a boot upon the face of all mankind. Our numbers up and the dead holding sound. Go along to get along, hypnotized by the siren song. The flames are empty and the crypts are cracking open. The horde's upon you and you stand there frozen, waiting for the word. Stand in line and wait your turn. Don't follow the strings to find out who is pulling. Just drink your poison, keep on laughing and drooling, eating your own flesh. The master always knows what's best. Worldwide genocide. The overlords are hungry parasites. They point the finger and the eagles fly. Raining fire, children die. Starving plague, paralyzed. Pile of bodies rotting, covered in flies. But no one wants to talk about it. It's safer not to talk about it. I cut my strings, no more bowing to the master. I tried to run, but they only came faster. Now I stand my ground. I ain't backing down. Silver bullets in my pistol in my holster. My will is strengthened and my confidence is bolstered. Don't test my resolve. Don't test my resolve.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Sunday, March the 17th, 2024. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you all, if that's your thing. I don't really do a whole lot of... I don't think Dustin's going to pinch me, so I didn't wear any green. But Dustin, I don't guess is too worried about me pinching him either. But, he's got green plugs. Yep. So I hope you got somebody pinching you out there, wherever you are.
Even
Hope you're-
though, if you want to look at the other side of it, it's like, you know, the snakes were not, there are no actual physical snakes. It's a very derogatory slur for pagans. And that's what they did, was just the mass, you know,
Yeah.
exodus of like getting rid of all that to convert the whole country to Christianity.
Yep. And
To get rid of the druidism and stuff that they were beforehand.
so yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're glad you joined us, because I did want to get into a little recap of why it is we actually do the show, because we've had a lot of live viewership as of late, and You
Which is
know,
great.
we hadn't had as many viewers overall, but most of our views have been coming live, and that's cool. That's what we really want is, you know, I'm really not worried about how many views we get, but I want people in the conversation with us, and we've had that the last several episodes. So we invite you to join us in the chat. We invite you to follow us on X and on YouTube and on Rumble. We do live on X and YouTube every Sunday and Thursday night. Sundays nights we get into like a conspiracy theory or some hidden history, or a lot of times we have a local history story that we do in addition to it. But then on Thursday nights we tend to do, me and Aaron Armageddon do a Skype call where we go over some news and current events affecting, you know, local area in Tennessee and the nation. But one of the main reasons that we do this channel, if you hadn't been with us since the beginning, which probably most of you haven't, we got word in the local news that there were going to be some smart poles installed in Johnson City, and there was a video on the WHL, the local news media company owned by Nexstar, that I noticed, and it was kind of favorable coverage of it. I would say I wouldn't say it was necessarily neutral, but it was very unassuming, the report on it, as if, you know, this was something that was just happening, and, you know, nobody should really be for or against it. It's just a thing that's happening. And it was that the local city leaders in Johnson City, Tennessee, had decided to put in smart poles. And as they went on into the story, they didn't really go into details about what kind of sensors and data collection these smart poles would, you know, what kind of arrays they would have, what they'd be doing, just that they would be there to prevent crime. They would have certain sensors, and they would collect data. They also described that those data would be transferred to the TVA in lieu of payment for the poles. So I got to thinking a little bit about this. I thought, wow, why would the TVA want to collect the data on Johnson City? You know, it was just thinking to myself, it wasn't like I feel like this was a, you know, kind of deep question or anything. It was just something, you know, almost immediate when I heard that. I said, well, why did they want that data? And then I thought, well, they do provide the area with most of the power, so it would make sense that they would want the data. But then I felt like, well, it kind of has to be a little more than that. The TVA, they control the dams and waterways and things like that. Like, why would they want? What kind of data would they want? And these things they're going up in the middle of the city, and they're going to be used for like parking and flood control and all kinds of different stuff, that functions of a city that you would want to have. But they also have high definition cameras. They have 24, you know, 20, not all of them, but some of them have 24, not 24, 360 degree video. We have to assume that all manner of software can be run on the video that comes in through that. So they could, you know, scan for faces. They could decode your gates, and, you know, all the nasty surveillance stuff you see like in communist China and England. You know, all that stuff is able to be done with the setup that the smart poles have.
Audio, and it's like it says it provides Wi-Fi, so they can, like, if you're opening with your Wi-Fi just walking through, it could possibly, you know, like your phone could try to ping to it, and, you know, it could get data from you from there.
Even if you don't have your Wi-Fi on, it could, from, you know, just your phone. Your phone is constantly sending out radio, you know, RF. So even if you have Wi-Fi off, your phone will sometimes say that you have Wi-Fi available. Would you like to turn on your Wi-Fi? You know, how does it know that unless it's constantly sending out a signal every now and then? So
Mine doesn't say that unless
you have a VPN though,
yeah.
don't you? Yeah. So why do you have a VPN? You have a VPN. Well, good.
Usually, I mean, I know it's like, if some people try to say them as this all end all be all of internet security, it's like they're not. But it's something that helps to push your IP from being like exactly right then and there. You can make it seem like you're somewhere else, and it also gives you encryption. It does give you encryption from on your end. So, you know, like if you're on public Wi-Fi, it makes it to where, you know, people that are scamming, you know, trying to skim like your credit cards and shit off of you, it makes it to where that is, you know, it gives you that extra layer of security. But
it's basically because there's a
makes things so much harder for someone really has to try to get your data instead of just you openly and unawareingly just like, hey, here's all my data that's on my phone, here, take it from me.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was going to get to. Like, if you sign on to a public Wi-Fi network where there's no password, or where there's so many people that, you know, it doesn't really matter if there is a password, you're opening up everything that's on your phone, every connection that phone makes with the internet is going to go through that router in their building, and it's going to leave a record on that, on what, because coming down to there, it's going to go to a server, it's going to go to a data
You
center.
get an IP address, which can be traced on certain things. That IP, the actual hardware in your Wi-Fi card for your MAC addresses.
Yeah, and a lot of times not even without like your cookies and stuff, without you even accessing the internet, just because you walked by with the phone in your pocket. Like all your data could theoretically be, seized while you're walking through an area where you're making that connection. Now, that's not to say that they're doing that right now, and they've not given us a lot of data about what these sensors do in fact collect, but they
it's entirely within the realm of possibility
that they could be used that way. Yeah, but one of the main reasons that I thought this was curious too is the TVA is when I started looking into the TVA a little bit. They're actually a private corporation that's owned by the United States federal government.
That's how they can get around all those little pesky federal loopholes that they can't do.
Yeah, so the federal government wouldn't be able to collect your data like that and transmit it. They can buy it from somebody else though, or we found that out recently. They can just buy up all your cell phone data, and they don't have to spy on you. They can just buy the data from your cell phone company. But anyway, they also own they own. So somehow the federal government as an entity that we've, allegedly fund and provide, we don't want to drop a rim fire around there. But, they hold the shares of the TVA. So therefore, they have access to any of its data, and just like they use buying the cell phone company data, they can use the data that they own from the TVA for this. So what's up, Aaron? Glad to have you with us, brother. Brothers from other mothers. But yeah, so that's I thought that was a little bit creepy and a little bit dystopian. So we started looking further into this stuff, and as we did, we found that there was a company called Flock Safety that had cameras going in Kingsport and in Elizabethton. That these things are connected to a grid of over 2,000 cameras or 2,000 cities nationwide in 42 states where they can all run together, right? So in the meantime, as this is going on, we're finding all this stuff going on locally. We're also from the beginning, we found the World Economic Forum Smart Cities. This was a time where, you had guys like Glenn Beck, and this was probably around 2021. You had kind of mainstream, like, I don't know what you really even call guys like Glenn Beck, but those kind of guys that had pretty big audiences of millions of people, like BoomerCon audiences almost. And Glenn Beck himself is kind of more of a libertarian BoomerCon, I guess. But like people that our parents' age watch, people in their early 60s, early to late 60s, younger baby boomers, that they would watch these people, and they're starting to talk about the World Economic Forum. They're starting to talk about Agenda 2030 and things like this, things that us conspiracy guys have been talking about for years. But they started seeing a lot of this. So one of the things that they were all picking up on is Klaus Schwab, and you'll eat some bugs and you'll own nothing, you'll be happy. And so the World Economic Forum eventually they took that video down. I don't know which one I ended up picking. Let's pick a thumbnail here. Let's do small town. Gotta have a good thumbnail there. Oh no, that's not the one I want. We're gonna change it again. Look at the thumbnail of the video. I think it's pretty cool. This was, believe it or not, of course it was created by AI, and I had the AI write me something here. I hope I can still pull it up, because I wanted to see what its answer was for give me the, might have been small town one. Give me some reasons why a smart surveillance town would be something that would be dangerous to security and liberty. And let's see what it said. I haven't read this yet, so. Oh, I guess it's done. I guess I closed it. Never mind. So I'll type that up real quick and get an answer from it. But Dustin, what's something that comes off of your head as why that would be something that would be dangerous?
Just like what we said, it's like if your data is that easy to, it's easy out there. It's easy for anyone to access. That means, what's one thing about your things of freedom is like your privacy. You don't have any more privacy. They can know where you are, even though, they know where you are with these anyway. But with this in your pocket, they can triangulate it anymore. If they want to, they can be like, hey, we don't like you. Let's shut down every bit of data that you have so you can't communicate and get your
Wow, this is great,
Here,
man.
what's
This is really awesome. What this Google's Copilot or Microsoft's Copilot gave me. Let's check this out, man. I'm honestly pretty surprised at this. So I asked it, write a paragraph of why a smart surveillance grid could be a danger to liberty and privacy. What are some of the potential dangers of a nationwide surveillance grid? And Copilot has really hooked us up here with a really good response with 10 great points. Like I could have done this better myself. So, so as much as AI, like it can be used against us.
Was exactly what I was
Yeah.
saying right then.
As much as this can be a tool that we can use in our favor. See, I'm not a Luddite. I'm not against having technology. I'm not against the city deciding, the citizens of Johnson City deciding that they want to have a smart grid that helps them, control flood levels, control parking, keep an eye on people if, you're in a public place and there's crime there that happens a lot, to help track down the people committing the crime. Nobody's really against that, I don't think. I mean, I'm sure there's some people who are, but it's not the principle, not the idea of a smart city in general, and that's what I'm going to get around to. It's not that Johnson City is just choosing to do this, right? They're getting an incentive from an outside group who has other motivation for that. So let's look at some of this.
It's who's providing the capital to fund all of this. It's like, what are they getting out of this by giving you this? What are they getting back? Which you find that's a lot of the case. You're like, why are you? It's like, what are you going to get back from you giving me this?
Yeah.
Like, in anything.
When you make a deal with the devil, the devil always wants.
Just do.
Yeah, he always wants something. Wants you for a reason. And we're going to get into that. What I think that reason is, if we can stay on track, and we're going to try, and I think we can, and I hope you'll stay with us. We have noticed that the live viewership has been going up and staying up, but it is St. Patrick's Day, so I'm not expecting a Irish miracle or anything. But maybe we'll get some people in here. But last couple episodes we've had, or last few episodes, people have stuck with us through the whole episode, and we've had kind of higher views than we've really had live in the whole time, above double digits at least for the whole time. So hopefully we'll get some more of that tonight, and we can get into why exactly we do this. But let's check out the Iron Mountain Hour this is AI Did My Homework edition of Iron Mountain Hour. So
At least it didn't eat it.
yeah, no, it didn't, and I'm honestly surprised by this. This is really good. This is almost like it was written by the ACLU from 1980. Privacy erosion, mass surveillance, and a nationwide grid would collect vast amounts of data on citizens' activities, both online and offline. And the intrusion into personal lives erodes privacy right. Absolutely, and the chilling effect is a major part of that. And like, I would have expected the thing maybe to say mass surveillance, but I wouldn't have expected to mention the chilling effect. Knowing one that's constantly monitored can lead to self-censorship, inhibiting free expression and dissent. And you'll notice we even do that on this show, just because, we know the rules of YouTube, so it's a little bit different. But YouTube is a platform that's allowed to have rules, and we do have to follow those in order to use the platform. Okay, I understand all that, but the idea, there's no really ideas that aren't allowed. There's certain ways that you're not allowed to say things, so you don't lead to people to get the wrong idea about things. And then there was a time when there were some ideas that aren't allowed, but they've kind of backed off of that, and you're pretty much allowed to have any idea except for that one idea that we won't we won't even name. But there is that one idea they won't even let you talk about. But we'll just go on from that. And seems X does a little better, but it still doesn't allow a lot of it. But let's go look at number 2: abuse of power, government overreach. Surveillance systems can be misused by authorities to target political opponents, activists, or marginalized communities. So yeah, looky there, that's true. Unchecked authority without proper oversight, surveillance agencies may overstep their bounds, leading to unjust actions. And that's absolutely true, because you look at you remember we saw a report from originally I think it was from an FBI leak, but it just came out from a FOIA that there is a whole database for different companies that contract with the federal government, and for the federal government to use, the FBI to use, for the House to use, or for upper people with clearances to use, where they can check and keep a list of Americans who do things as innocuous as buying a Bible. You get on the list. As searching MAGA, you get on the list, and they're tracking what you do on the internet and keeping a database of you on this list, or keeping a database of everything you do. And so we're definitely on there.
Mhm.
You know, any of us who, if you bought a firearm, if you're pro Second Amendment, if you donated to a political candidate for who favors any of that stuff, if you bought a Bible, if you made a YouTube video talking about why you believe in God, you better believe you're on the list, okay? So that's exactly, I mean, we've got this thing it's in place already. We just don't really realize it because if, I think at this point right now, if they started, you know, rating people off of it because we're still able to communicate with everybody, I think it would cause enough of a fuss that they don't dare do it. I'm not sure because it's a really unpopular administration right now. I mean, even liberals hate Joe Biden, and I mean it's pretty hard to they don't really want to do anything. They need to do things that make them more popular, not things that would make them less popular.
Even less.
Yeah, and so at this point, with all the damn political persecutions or prosecutions that this administration's done so far, I think that'd be a step too far to where even, I mean, you might even have the literal commies, which a lot of them are, but be like, hey, that's too far. Because the commies don't want anybody else to have that power. They just want them to have the power.
Mm-hmm.
They want it to be liberal until they take it over, and then they want to use the power. But,
That's like I've said many times, it's like, that's the problem about, hey, when my guy gets in power, this will get changed. Your guy should never have that much power to begin with.
yeah, that's kind of the whole idea.
It doesn't matter which side of the coin, left, right, whatever. They should never have that much power to be like, okay, if that can completely affect and utterly change someone's life.
Yeah, but by one person's mistake or one person's corruption. So that was number two, the unchecked authority, because, you know, you could also have, you know, somebody who's in charge, basically, like we talked about in the Georgia Tan case last week. They didn't need a computer grid to do this, but they had everybody paid off that mattered. So, yeah, if you didn't check that out, me and Aaron Armageddon did an awesome show, I thought, talking about Georgia Tan and the child trafficking case from the it finally got unwound in the 1950. But Aaron and I talked about that Thursday night. It was really interesting. This lady was stealing all kinds of babies, became rich, you know, adopted them out to rich and famous, like Pearl S. Buck and Joan Crawford, you know, really famous people out there. And she was stealing babies and selling them. And she had a whole network of judges, doctors, lawyers, child social workers. Everybody was in on the take. So you imagine you got a network of that. You got those people. You got them in power in government, and all of a sudden you give them tools to look into anybody's backyard, look into anybody's home, look into anybody's, watch all their movements. You give those people that kind of authority. You want to talk about, I mean, you know, it was very hard back in the day for this thing to be even uncovered, just because so many people that were powerful were in on it. Mm-hmm. So you tried to tell them or blow the whistle, like you would go, it's like a horror movie, like where you think you've escaped, and, you know, you go to the country store right down at the bottom of the hill, you know, and you walk in there and you're like, oh, thank God, you know, and then it turns out that it's just part of the illusion. It's part of, you know, there's some kind of crazy guy in there who's just waiting on you to, you know, to get you. So it's a false sense of security, and it's like almost like they're playing with you. So the data vulnerability is number 3, talking about cybersecurity risks, hacking, cyber attacks, all this stuff.
Kind of that number also goes with that number 1. That's what we said.
Yeah, I mean,
the smart poles taking your data.
If you're already plugged into it, it's easy for nefarious actors to access your data. If you're touching it all the time, then all they have to do is touch the main node that you go in through, and get all your shit. And I just cussed, and I bet my beautiful daughter, who I'm so proud and so happy, and she does such a good job with everything, and she's been watching lately because she said she missed me, so pardon my mouth, honey. I love you. Yeah, the going on to the false positive and discrimination. So you could have automated surveillance systems that may disproportionately flag innocent individuals based on race, ethnicity, or other factors, and that's true.
That was that one thing we talked about with the thing going up, the ones in Kingsport and Elizabeth, and because where they're placed, they're kind of near. Some of them could be possibly near bad parts of town,
yep.
And if that's like your route to work,
yep.
they could be like, hey, you go near this bad area. What are you doing over here?
Yep. And they have no business even knowing that you go over there. But this thing automatically, this flock security system in Elizabethton and Kingsport, it automatically collects that data. And the Elizabethton police and the I don't know about the Kingsport police, but the Elizabethton police department says they only keep it for 90 days or 30 days. But how long does Flock keep it for? That's not ever mentioned. And Flock has a nationwide So to take it back to the point I was starting, but kind of got derailed off of, I derailed myself. The when they started with the FBI and they started with the federal government making this list of people and making us as enemies of the state in some way or another, saying that Trump supporters were terrorists or that school board parents, this was a memo that went through the FBI. It wasn't actually the FBI saying it, but the people at the school board wanted the FBI to treat the school board parents as terrorists, and the FBI was actually kind of looking into it that way. And so you've got people, your political adversaries, whichever side you're on, whether you're a MAGA person or you're a progressive person or nowhere in between, you've got the opportunity for your political adversaries who we've seen over the years, political parties will do things to one another when they have power over one another to try to maintain full control. And whichever party it is, or, like I said, we think both parties are really connected at the top, and just the parties are just kind of subdivisions vying for the direction of the power that the party takes, So, you can, essentially, if
they
you take
basically want to sugarcoat it, so they'll be like, "Hey, let's screw you." It's like, okay, that sounds like a good idea.
If you take all of the worst things that the Republicans want to do and all the worst things that the Democrats want to do, and put them together,
every time each one gets in power, you sprinkle a little more on that shit sandwich.
Yeah, the good stuff rarely gets done, but they each both kind of get, the Republicans there for a while, they were able to keep getting more and more war than they were able to get, they were able to deregulate the economy, not in a good way to allow the free market to work, but in a way to where they picked the winners and called it deregulating the economy. And,
and like during Trump's administration, he giving that power to the ATF that they should never have, it's like still illegal for them to have, but they let them be like, hey, you can make all these choices if you want to.
Yeah. So they go back and forth, and they take little chunks out of your liberties, and you never know which side it's going to come from, but they go back and forth, chunk, chunk, chunk.
It's like every time I remember, it's like, what was it? Like when one of them's in power, they slowly chip away at like civil liberties, and then the other side, when they get in power, it's like, you're like, we're not going to do that. They chip away at constitutional.
They've flipped back and forth from time to time. Like the Republicans are anti-war now and more pro-privacy and pro-free speech, and where the liberals are, they're, we've got to stop misinformation, so we got to stop people from talking. But at the top, both parties are there. Both of them want everybody to talk. What we got? Aaron says he doesn't drink go diddling anymore. Diddling when I shouldn't be diddling when I ain't married, so I'm staying in. It's tempting, but because you're a redheaded guy, though, tonight, business is good tonight. Oh, yeah. Aaron's talking about why he doesn't go out and drinking and diddling anymore. He said a guy with a nail in his head and bib overalls at the gas station comes out and clubs you with a pipe wrench while you're on the phone calling for help, and he hollers 2 goons in the back. Yeah, that's exactly right. You think you got away, and then there he comes. But let's continue on down this list a little bit, because this is so good. They actually hit a lot of the things that I would have hit, and I think it's worth looking at. Let me pull it back up here, but mission creep. We talked about false positives. Your innocuous actions could trigger events leading to unwarranted investigations, like Dustin was talking about. You drive past the rough area of town, you get investigated for it. Mission creep. The scope expansion. It is initially designed for expansion, specific purposes, but they always, because they're capable of doing more, they end up being used for more. Just like the Patriot Act, where it was always supposed to only go after terrorists, but by like 2003, you had local sheriff's department using it to make drug busts. Where they had no evidence of anybody, but they would report them as a terrorist because they knew that, like, okay, we know they're running drugs, we know they're doing things that are illegal, but we don't have the evidence to get a warrant on them even. But if we say they are engaged in terrorism, we can listen to everything that they're doing. And so that started almost right away. And if you don't think that was misused, well, I mean, I guess you have got a bridge to say. I don't know. I don't know a better saying than that, but there's always the overuse of any surveillance system, especially when you give it carte blanche to listen. And basically that's what you're doing. If you're putting a poll that the city is funding that gives the data to a company owned by the federal government downtown, they're tracking everything you do when you come through there. And it's right now it's just small geographical areas, even though your phone and everything that data is being collected too. I mean, satellite systems, they are your GPS satellites. You don't think they're paying attention. I mean, it's not that anybody's watching you. It's just keeping a record of everything we're all doing. You got to remember one of the other
So
things.
when the thought police come knocking,
Yep. There'll be no denying it. There'll be no denying it. It'll be like Winston Smith. You just can't, nothing to hide. Nowhere to hide, anything. And so right now, basically, they have the capabilities of collecting all this data, and they're in the process of normalizing using the data and also expanding the ability to collect it via geographical location on a local level. So mission creep is happening, and function creep. Surveillance tools meant for security may be repurposed for commercial or political interest, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. You get the locals. Let's just say right now, you say get a local Democrat mayor in office, and they're really aligned with the goals of the National Party, and so she feels like she's got this crazy duty to shut down conservatives and right wingers and stop them from taking. This town's been taken over by MAGA extremists. Well, we're going to show them, so we're going to start listening in on everything they do. We're going to flag everything they do as suspicious and start harassing them. Eventually, somebody will do something crazy, and then we can put them down on camera. And there's all kinds of ways that this can be used. And you could turn it the same way. You could have a fundamentalist Christian take it over here. He could, start picking on some gay person or somebody that drives through town and say, "Oh, this guy's destroying our children," and here we got pictures of him driving past the school. He's driving past the school like 3 times a day, and never mind that he works like right down the road from the school maybe, and drives past it to go to lunch, and then drives past it when he comes back even from lunch, and then drives past it on the way home.
The other camera shows him he passes by a street where there might be possible drug activity, so they're buying drugs to give to children.
Yeah, so there you go.
See,
you can put it all together and show it to the people and clip it up and make it look like you're really helping the world out and have everybody cheering you on while they do those awful things. And this just makes it easier for you. The normalization of surveillance. So people accept it as normal and overlook its effect, And so another one would be it discourages experimentation and risk taking. It can also stop people from exploring unconventional ideas because they may be flagged as, doing something outside the norm and catch it like, oh, we see a pattern that's breaking and you're the one breaking it, so we've got to put a stop to this. So it goes on to infrastructure dependency, and if we're relying heavily on surveillance infrastructure, then we could, if we don't have that, if that's the only way we're like controlling crime, then something fails with it. How are you going to have crime? How are you going to hold crime or stop crime? It also stops from resources from going to other critical needs. So think about all the good things that those polls with all the expensive, I don't know how many dozens there are now. They end up doing a lot more than I understood they were going to do. So I imagine there's been more money flowing through it than originally invested. But even if it was just the original investment of $330,000, there's a lot of things that money could do to really get. That's not that much money, but there's a lot of things you could do with that money that would have a more direct effect on people's lives and actually be good for the city.
Where are the roads people at? 'Cause our roads are getting crap around here right now.
Yeah, and if you drive through,
the bridges are being screwed up. Like there's like half the bridges in town are shut down right now.
And if you drive through downtown Johnson City, I was driving home yesterday. And I was driving through downtown Johnson City, and you've got to park your truck. If you want to unload your truck, you got to park in the middle of the road because there's nowhere to park. How about instead of like putting in a smart grid where we take videos and take data and collect all this different shit, and sorry, Ayla, and taking all this different data from people. How about and studying where we need parking? Why don't we walk out on the street and say, look, every time this guy makes a delivery here, he has to pull in the street. So we need to have more parking here. Like, why do you need a computer to do math to tell you that? Like, you can see where there's always a hard time parking, and you put more parking there. Okay, that problem solved. We didn't need a smart camera for that. Now you can have a surveillance camera that okay, the cops are going to be able to watch that area, or if something happens, you can go back and look on the surveillance camera and see what happens. If it's in a public area, okay, that's not ideal in my opinion, but that's I mean, you really. They say you don't have the right to privacy in public, and I think that's right to a degree because if you're out in a public space and you're doing things where everybody can see you, you can't really get mad if somebody sees you, even if it is a camera. But I don't believe in the state being able to like collect and hold all that against you either. So uh, they use that to say, well, you don't have an expectation of privacy in public. Well, I kind of disagree with that. I have an expectation of privacy from the state. I don't, necessarily have like if I'm going to sit in my car and you know, do something that I shouldn't be doing, if somebody reports me and then the police come and take me away for it, okay, that's kind of different than me just walking by and the police just being able to watch me and watch everything I'm doing. Especially if there was no one harmed or anything like this. A lot of people will say that since you have no expectation of privacy that you shouldn't demand and expect it. Well, and I disagree with that notion. What's up, Dalton? What's up with the TikTok ban? I don't know. I'm. I don't think it. I don't think any social media should be banned. I do think that we shouldn't allow. Okay, China doesn't allow us to run companies in their country. So why the hell do we allow Chinese companies to operate in America?
And why the hell have we allowed them to buy up all this farmland?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, they would not let us do that, and with good reason. I mean, okay, it's good you want foreign investment in your country, but it should be reciprocal based on a good trading relationship. So, like with China, they're paying everybody slave labor wages, and having to put suicide nets around the building and to keep people working, and everybody's drugged and making nothing. And okay, so I don't think we should trade with that country that does that kind of thing. I think we should use our power of our economy to say, well, no, we're not going to trade with that. And we should also not allow them to invest in our economy. But somebody like, say, I don't know, let's just say Sweden or somebody where we have like shared values and we say, hey, a human being is worth more, than an iPhone. We can do business with them. We can trade with them. And if China wants to get in on that action, they're going to have to change what they're doing to what we want to do. We're not going to get in their business, but we're going to say, hey, look, if you want to trade with people, you got to treat human beings like human beings. But we're not doing that. So we have no really, we have plenty of, we got plenty of opportunity where we could flex our muscle in that way, but nobody has the political wherewithal to do it because they're all paid off by the money that's coming in from China. How do you think it got that way? Mm-hmm. Lots of money came in and paid lots of lobbyists to pay.
And why do tech industry? Why does Microsoft need millions of acres of farmland?
Yep. Well,
why do tech industries want farmland?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. Bioengineered ingredients. Here's our Aaron talking about. He says the thing he's creeped out is he doesn't see the MSM talking about the new bioengineered ingredients. It's almost almost on all packaged food now. Yeah, it is. A lot of it is. I think, Aaron, that they made a law that or maybe they were expecting a law change. I don't know if it actually passed yet, but that maybe it was an FDA recommendation or something that they did have to label anything as bioengineered as it was. But here's the thing. There's a lot of things that are bioengineered that are not necessarily a bad thing, okay? Because so basically genetic engineered as far as them splicing the genes of a food and then pumping it into the food chain with unknown results. That's not necessarily that. So that's something we don't want, like that kind of genetically modified. But you can also bioengineer, like you name a plant like the mustard plant. Broccoli is bioengineered from the mustard plant. So is and technically speaking, broccoli is a bioengineered food because humans have bred certain plants to. Okay,
it doesn't occur naturally.
Yeah, the mustard plant does, and we take the flowers of it and basically pump up, combine ones that have the bigger flowers until we get in to where they're all flower, all broccoli flower. Same thing with the greens. We get the mustard green is the main thing, so you get a plant that's almost all greens, and the same thing with like Brussels sprouts and cabbage. They all come from that plant. And you take the plants that are the most similar to the ones that you want, and you keep breeding them together until you get the plant that you want. And that's technically bioengineering. So there are some things like that get caught up in that umbrella term. Like Aaron says, it's an umbrella term.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, honestly, it's to hide when they actually do the bioengineering that is like the genetic engineering that's, on the gene level, like CRISPR editing the food and putting all kinds of weird stuff in it. They've been talking about, people talk about General Flynn, I think it was in like 2020 or 2021. It was fairly early on during the COVID thing. General Michael Flynn, he did a tweet about how they were putting, they wanted to put vaccines in dressing or in salad, and it was actually he was talking about greens. There were companies talking about, and I think even Bill Gates talking about, they were wanting to grow greens that already had the RNA in them. So when you took them, you were basically getting slowly inoculated through eating the greens. And they put out this thing, kind of like when they did, Trump says you should drink bleach, when he was actually talking about, disinfectants within the blood or UV lighting within the blood, things that have come out since then to FDA approval that they were working on. And that's the media knew that's what Trump was talking about, but it was a chance to make him sound stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And because I couldn't tell you how many people when that happened said, "Did you hear about Trump saying to drink bleach?" But anyway, when this was happening, they did the same thing they tried to do the same thing to General Flynn, but he didn't have the same size platform. But it was like, oh, General Flynn thinks they're putting vaccines in salad dressings. And then slowly later on, you see this coming out, more and more articles about putting RNA in the food. And so, yeah, it's a real thing. And a lot of times they make fun of it first, and then they say, oh, well, actually it is happening, but, that's not happening. And they say, well, it is happening, but if you think it's a bad thing, you're crazy. And, well, it is happening, but it's actually a good thing, and we should be proud of it.
What are you gonna do about it?
Yep. Soylent Green. You don't know about Soylent Green, man. I mean, it's possible, but it just doesn't make sense to me right now. I mean, in a later world, maybe a different world, that I could see they would definitely do that. But I think there are plenty of other food sources that are actually less, much more convenient for them than recycled. They want us to eat the bugs. But let's keep going a little bit, because they're normalizing policing tactics. Getting handed, with surveillance, or that's normally part of like a police state. Mm-hmm. So if somebody's watching all the time, it's because they're looking for you doing something wrong. And if once they catch all the people that are actually doing stuff wrong, if they're watching all the time, they'll eventually catch most of them. And then they'll still have people to look for, and they'll catch a lot of people that aren't doing things wrong. Because they look like they're doing things wrong, and the people who actually are doing the crime will just get a lot better at hiding it. Meanwhile, everyday citizens will continue to be victimized by the police state.
Because there's just too many laws. It's like you can't not find something. They can't not find something that you're doing wrong at any given time. And
they get what's called the panopticon effect, which is the fear of being watched, how that alters your behavior. And citizens will conform to these social norms out of fear rather than genuine conviction. It's almost like it's a society of people who are ready to do the wrong thing as soon as they can get away with it. They only do the right thing because they know somebody's watching. But anyway, that was a pretty interesting list there by the AI. I couldn't have said it a lot better myself, to be honest. But let's look a little bit further. I wanted to show you this. We put in, just for a real quick rundown. This is back from 2021. Or 2022, Johnson City and Bright Ridge with the TVA cut the ribbon on 49 new smart poles installed in downtown Johnson City. They'll monitor flood sensors along Brush Creek, run through Founders Park, and provide loudspeakers for music and emergency alerts. They also have 4-way LED lights and smart sensors, including a pedestrian count sensor in both Founder and Commons City Park. So a pedestrian count sensor. How would they count pedestrians if they didn't have either one, video? They couldn't do it by light, because they couldn't do like motion detector. They'd pick up birds and everything. It has to be video. That would be the only way, and likely combined with the cell phone. When your cell phone pings on that tower is probably another way they confirm that as a person. So they don't get into a lot of details of it.
I mean, that's easy to do with a camera sensor that just because it can sense it, like, okay, this is a human, click. This is a human, click.
And they definitely...
And they can just, if somebody wants to change the algorithm and refine it to be like, okay, change, for humans that look like this, to go to be like to look for something that
Yep.
they so deem to look for, whatever that may be.
And I've seen videos on the news of from those smart cameras, like we're looking for these subjects involved in shooting, you know. So they definitely are equipped with cameras, and I feel like they're definitely equipped with a lot more technology than what that article just said. That just gave some ideas for what they would do. They just redid the whole area down there and like bought all that land and like you eminent domain to that U-Haul guy and like forced him out of there. Of course, he got rich from it if he wasn't already rich, but he got a good payout from it. But anyway, they forced that guy out of downtown so they could do the flood control system. Like, so they really don't have that problem there now, do they? I haven't seen it flood in a long time, and I don't know if the smart poles are there for that or not. But either way, they got a lot more things that they can do. Now we're looking at Chattanooga,
Which, I mean,
Tennessee.
I guess they could say that, so that's why whenever you look and they have the TVA involved, you're like, it's for that.
Mm-hmm.
Flood controlling.
Yep, I think that's exactly right. But that's that's the way they put it in their purview. Now Chattanooga has been selected to be one of 2 cities in a global initiative in the United States to use broadband and data to plan and utilize energy, transportation, healthcare, and communications in more sustainable and equitable ways. And get this, so this is put in by this is part of the World Economic Forum Smart City Pilot Program. World Economic Forum funds this, and they made Chattanooga one of them. San Jose was the only other one in the United States. They got one on the East Coast, or one right inside the East Coast, right over
the
west.
eastern U.S. and one in the western.
There you go. And so San Jose and Chattanooga, and Chattanooga has been, now it's the quantum city, so it's like basically the smart hub in the United States for like all these different communications and quantum computers. Or there's like a ton of quantum computers, and they have like a quantum network infrastructure. It's like one of only a few in the world like this, big time in Chattanooga. You think that's not coming here? Well, it already is. You can see with the TVA's program there in Johnson City. You can see with the Flock Security. It's all going to be connected into this whole. It's all one grid that's connecting, right? It's like you have a. It's like in the old days, in the LAN party days. You could bring your computer to the room where you had a network everybody connected into. Everybody could be disconnected, and you could bring your computer in there, and you could play and not touch the other computers in there. But once you also wanted to play, you just connect them all together. So you have everything in place, and you can still use them independently. And that's how they're doing this. But once these systems are all in place and connected to the same system, you can all just put them all together and have them run simultaneously and share data. And just like if you have, I mean, that's a kind of a real basic way. But if you understand how networks and systems work, you can see how all these things will work together. And even if you don't have an understanding, you can imagine. They're all plugged into the same internet, and they're all going to be plugged into the same place. So this is World Economic Forum. Why do we not want the World Economic Forum? Choosing basically installing. This is a civilization control grid. Okay, this is what this is. This is like a city simulator, like Civilization or Sim City, right? That they get to play in real life. All right, so all these systems that we're giving them are basically putting them in the driver's seat of a giant city building sim, removing the consequences from them, just like in the video game, and allow them to basically play out their little control fantasies. While we pretty much, it removes us from having a say so in what goes on around us. But these. If you go on down here, it says Chattanooga. At this time, it was called the Gig City. Well, that was 4 years ago. It's way beyond the Gig City. It's now the Quantum City, and it was gigabit internet. Oh man, dude, they got like multiple gigabyte per second internet there now. I mean, it's crazy how fast this stuff is. It's only getting faster. The Enterprise Center Co-Lab and the University of Tennessee Chattanooga. So that's part of the UT University system, right? That's part of our state university system. That's funded and partly operated by the Tennessee state government. So our state government's funding a lot of this stuff too. So on city, on local, on federal government levels, it's all plugged into this thing. And remember, we talked on this show about how there was the Obama administration document from 2013 one for 2013, one for 2015, where they showed the whole reason they wanted these smart cities was so the federal government could be more involved in local matters and state matters. So that if the federal government was providing this funding, if they were providing these networks for infrastructure, if they were providing funding to Comcast, and Comcast was running everything, they would have some sort of foot in the door to be able to observe and control what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so they was explicit in the show. I should have pulled that up for tonight. We just had so many I didn't want to have everything pulled up. But go ahead, Dustin.
And them like saying if this, if you let them get involved, it could eventually turn into the hey, we don't like what you're doing with your city. If you don't change this and enforce this policy and this policy on your people, we're going to pull all this technology that you now are dependent on to run your lives.
Yep.
They could pull the plug on you. They have that control over you. They can dangle that carrot. They can gaslight you into things because they're like, well, if we don't listen to them, they're going to take it away from us.
And I was going to show you this here, the Flock Safety Company now. If you can see here, this is all about, okay, not only are they doing the license plate reading cameras, but look here what they've got now. They've got stuff for your home, right? So they're going to have the Flock 911, Flock OS software to run on your computer. They got video cameras for your house, for your business. So everything, they want to have a camera in everywhere you go, and they want to have that connected to a system that the local government has control of, right? So your local government, to start with, you have that camera in your home. All they have to do, you're trying to have a security camera to protect your family, see if there's anything going on when you're not there, maybe watch your dogs when you're out of town or something like that, or out at work or whatever. And your government, though, there's a local mayor who doesn't like that you criticize them, let's say for locking down over the coronavirus, and this local mayor says that decides that they don't like what you're saying, and they want to start keeping an eye on you in your house, and maybe you're doing something that is just weird, or maybe you're, doing something illegal, but you haven't got caught. Then they've got an easy way to catch you. They've got an easy way to basically keep an eye on you, like we talked about. Eventually, you'll do something wrong. Everybody's going to do something wrong at some time. You're going to break the law. There's so many laws that you can't help but break one eventually. And if they can watch you all the time, they're going to catch you doing one a lot more frequently than if they have to rely on waiting until you harm someone and that person reports it as a crime. You're a lot less likely to violate the law by actually harming someone. More than likely, you're going to violate some little procedural law or something like this that can be just as damning as actually hurting somebody if you go into law and you go into court. So you're talking, 24/7 coverage of your home, business, community, school, and then they want that tied into the same system that the police get because you'll be much safer, right? But let's just hope that your political opponents don't suddenly have that and want to, maybe let's say you have maybe you're cleaning your gun at the kitchen table or something. They say, oh, he's a danger. He pointed that gun at somebody. He's brandishing his firearm to people outside of his house. And then they show a video of you picking up and looking through the barrel or something while you got your gun taken apart, and they're like, look, he pointed that at somebody, and they've got you on video doing it. And for an ignorant jury, they can convince you that that's the case. But they've got all kinds of different things that they could misconstrue what you're doing on video. And video just helps them build a case against you, whether you're actually breaking the law or not. Mm-hmm. The Agenda 21, they say it's a non-binding action plan of the United States with regard to sustainable development. Okay, they had this stuff. They wanted this done by 2000, as in by the 21st century. Mm-hmm. So a big part of this was sustainable farming, what they call them, things like this. And what it ultimately comes down to is global control of resource management. It's not about actually helping these places. It's about, we want global control with the UN and its proxies of where everything is grown, where all this different stuff is done. Basically, the way the whole world works, we want control over it. And by 2030, they're working to move it all to electric and downsize it to much less power, to where only a few a small class of people can use it, and the rest of us basically are, we have all our needs met, as in to stay alive within 15 minutes of us. This is the goal, to have most people never travel more than 15 minutes and never really think for themselves, for one, while the rich and elite basically live above us all and run the computer systems. That's what they think is going to happen. I tend to think we're going to end up as part of a living computer, because I think right now everything is going to AI, right? You've got, I just showed you, I just used AI to do my homework a little bit earlier there. So I honestly, I probably could have had AI write the whole show, and it probably would have been a good show, maybe even better than I could do. But the reason I do that is to show you that everything is going to be done with it, and I mean, it's working its way into every industry. Like I won't even go into the examples, but you all know, you see it everywhere. It's going into every industry. So you're going to have, I think, in the next few years, what the World Economic Forum wants is, and they explain it explicitly, which I pulled up here in the 8 predictions for the world in 2030 that has been wiped from the internet, but luckily there's the Wayback Machine, the Internet Archive, where they have this. Some of the videos still aren't there, but they go into all products will become services. I don't own anything. I own a car. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or any other clothes, says Danish MP Ida Oken. Shopping is a distant memory of the city in 2030, whose inhabitants have cracked clean energy and borrow what they need on demand. So, and it sounds utopian until she mentions every move is tracked, and outside the city, they live in swaths of, there's swaths of discontent. So basically, an ultimate society split in two. So you've got your it's like a Orwell type thing where the plebs, or the proles live outside of town, or the savages in Brave New World, where if you're in the party, you're expected to fully participate, but that doesn't mean that you actually get the riches of society. You get basically a comfortable life where you're held where you are, and you stay there, and you live, I think, in a VR headset. You will own nothing. You'll have everything delivered to you by drone, they say, and when it breaks, you won't even keep it long enough to be break. Everything's basically, it's a way to say communism without calling it communism, without saying, we're going to share all the resources. That's exactly what they're saying. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy because we'll all just share everything. And I'm sure nothing will happen to the property like it did in communism years before, where the state takes everything from everybody making anything, so the people stop making things, and then there's no property to share with anybody anymore. I mean, that's what always happens, and the communists don't run. They take the factories, they seize the means of production, and they can't keep up with the demand, and eventually people starve to death. And I think you'll have the same thing happening with this. I think as a matter of fact, I think it's a feature rather than a bug, because they want you, as I said, to eat the bugs. And I'm trying to catch up here.
Our brains are not routed to straight up do that, to not have anything that is yours.
Our society, our human nature is kind of based on, at a primitive level, that's mine, right? That's kind of how things work. Like, we have everything is dependent on being able to own, as far as being a free human being, being able to, and having a successful society, being able to own a product of your labor and being able to affect where you go. Because, I mean, ultimately everything we do is based on property rights. And if you don't have any privacy, then you really can't have any property, because without privacy, I mean, is it yours if you can't be alone on it? But everything is based on the idea that I'm going to be rewarded with materially for what I do in some way, and I can protect that, and I'm allowed to protect that, and I can use that to build a family.
Like, even if you go about it at the core level of, even, not saying like, oh, I want to hoard, I want all these things that I want physically.
Yeah.
Even if you take it down to the core of, like, what is yours, your family, the people that you have in your life that you love. It's like, if you're not able to protect them, to protect that which, that is part of you. If you're not able to protect them, It's like you don't have any of that. Even it's like if you look at it like the straight up like the tribalism, they had their group
Yeah.
where they live. They have all this deep interwoven family with their traditions, their ways of life. And it's like and they still have things.
Yep.
They have certain possessions that
Yep.
they have through their families, through their hierarchies.
Yeah, certainly. And one of the, I mean, I don't want to get into the communism debate tonight or anything like that, but a good example of it in the Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He goes into and it's it's almost like a classic parable, but it's a tale of a farmer who was very proud of his, he was proud to be a part of the revolution. He was very proud of his new tractor, and he donated his big brand new tractor to the revolution. And the other guys who were actually using the tractor, they didn't care because they didn't own the tractor. So nobody really took care of the tractor, and it wasn't very long at all before the tractor was totally destroyed because it didn't belong to anybody. So everybody said it's the property of the state. The state will give us another one if it messes up. We don't have to really worry about that funny noise it's making. We don't have to worry about that smoke. The state will do another one, and eventually, or maybe even they say we'll report it to the state, and the state says, "Oh, we've got another tearing up tractor over here." Well, I've got too many tearing up tractors. We can't keep up with them all. But either way, it was never meant for that many people to be managed. Okay, but now they think because they have AI and a whole system, a smart brain, they think it's finally going to work this time. And the goal of communists was never to, it was never actually to help the people. It was to control the people.
Mhm.
It was to get them all on the same level, make them homogenized enough to where they would be easy for the ruling class to control. And it's done, of course, you have to convince the people that you're doing it for them. And this is kind of the same goal that they're going with the World Economic Forum. They're going with the intellectuals. They're trying to convince the universities and the intellectuals and the politicians that this is what we need. We need a global technological superstate that's controlled by computers because they're way smarter than us. And, those of us who don't have anything to offer society, read, your invalids and all what they were basically the people that would have weeded out in the eugenics programs 100 years ago. All these people, they had to stop the eugenics program. So all the people they wanted to weed out, they didn't get to weed out. So those bloodlines are all still here. You think they don't want to get rid of them?
The terms of that, the free eaters.
Yeah, there you go.
The people that have ended up in big holes in the ground in these times that they've tried to implement these.
Yeah. So they basically want this is a system used to control people. It's a resource management system, but the goal is not actually to manage the resources successfully. I think again that it is, if you look at somebody like Mao or Stalin, they use these systems and they gained ultimate power and they wrought ultimate destruction on their own people. And to think that it was an accident, I don't think it was an accident. I think it leads to that way every time because it allows human nature to be stifled, and it allows basically authoritarians to have full reign of things. Mm-hmm. But so now they think, well, if we have a computer doing it, maybe it won't make these same mistakes. And that's what I think ultimately this is turning into. That's why they want security cameras on us from the red lights that are building a profile of us, to the downtown where we walk, to where everywhere our phone goes, it's pinging the satellites. When we log into social media, we make a post, it's going, there's a record of that. Everything we do. And, they wanted to, we shared on this show about how Facebook started the day after the CIA's LifeLog, or DARPA's LifeLog project ended. And DARPA's LifeLog project was an experiment to create a virtual world with a virtual version of every human being on this earth, so that they could basically use it as a simulation to see what would happen to us, given a certain event. So we want to see how the market's going to affect this. We're going to see how what does the news media do if this event happens? Mm-hmm. All these different experiments they wanted to run on this thing. Well, they shut it down, and the next day Facebook started. I think that they did is that this was the prototype, and Facebook is when it went active. And it's much more than Facebook. It's all these different, everything we do on the internet feeds into this program, mm-hmm. this new LifeLog that's back there. And they're collecting data from the cameras. They're collecting data from the cell phones. They're collecting data from this webcam right here in front of me. They're collecting data from my microphone on my computer, in my cable box. There are all these different sensors, and anything that you talk to that's smart is feeding data into this thing, the Internet of Things. And I think we are to become wetware. We're not only to have things implanted in us eventually where we'll become a part of the system, but even more than that, I think we will become physical parts of the machine is the goal of this thing. They want the Earth into basically a giant supercomputer that they go, and we as human beings participate in it as functions of the mechanical parts of the computer. So like, say, for work, there's not really a lot of work because the machines are doing mostly everything eventually. You look in 20 years, there's not going to be much work left for human beings that are here to do. Uh, there's still going to be some things you're not going to be able to do without a human, but they've been building cars, building everything without humans. They mostly just keep humans in the loop to give humans something to do because it would disrupt the economy too much, and they'd have to start paying universal basic income or something like this, or everybody would starve to death if they let machines do everything machines are capable of doing now. So their whole idea is to eventually have machines doing everything that they are capable of doing, have humans, most of us, in a virtual world that we never really leave in order to avoid the inhumane thing to us that they might really like to do. But it's a modern world. We can't follow the eugenics practices of old, so we've got to humanely keep these people out of our way. So we put them in virtual reality worlds. We'll have them in a pod where and like eventually I think a lot of people will stop going outside, and because they're like in Ready Player One, the world is so much crappier than the virtual world that they can live in. If you go outside, everything's burnt down. There's no food. You can see that the crickets you're eating are crickets and not like a steak like Cypher in the Matrix. You know that it's mush, but when I eat it in the Matrix, it feels like the real thing. So I would much rather stay in the Matrix and eat this cricket mush that my brain is telling me is a steak than to go into the real world and have to crawl around in the dark and find whatever scraps of food I can find to survive, eat this awful gruel or whatever, in the real world. So that's what they want for us. And your job, when, like I said, there's no more really function for the human left. Eventually it will happen. There will be nothing left for really humans to do. So they'll have you do things like, just the people that do want to feel active and don't want to live in it all day, that you'll look on your phone, you'll get an alert like Grand Theft Auto. Like, you go to this spot and pick up this package and deliver it to this guy over here and drop it off to him. And like, nobody knows what they're doing. You're just basically being a machine. You might be delivering data. You might be delivering a machine part. You're just part of a system, and probably a robot picks it up from you, and a robot takes it or whatever. It's just a complex system that only the computer actually knows, or the AI actually knows what's going on, and you're playing your role in it. It might tell you to go and stomp 3 times in a place. There might be a pipe under you that's clogged, and like everybody that's in the city at that time, hey, do you want to make $50? Okay, accept mission. Walk by, stomp on the X 3 times. $50 that's credited to your account, and then you move on through. And so on and so forth. You won't know why you were stomping on that pipe. You won't ask why. You'll just do what the thing tells you, and you'll get your reward. And I think that's eventually what they want to create. And that's why they have this huge network, because it's the infrastructure for all this to run on. Just like if you want to make a city, you got to build roads for people to travel to the different places on it. To be able to participate in the economy, you got to make that. You got to put electricity in there so that they can, have lights on their stores and water so they can have bathrooms. You got to do all these things before the city can open. So you're looking at the beginning of a digital city that is coming into place all around us, and it's basically with the goal to move us out of the physical space and into the digital space.
But like the bad thing about, we have all these things in fiction, stating a lot of these things, but we don't have any of the cool crap out of it.
Yeah.
It's like we don't have interstellar space travel. We're not out. It's like, because if we had these technologies like this, why aren't we able to force ourselves to be able to break what the bonds that we have and be able to explore space, do these things that we should be able to do if we're not bound by having to grind and work all the time in our lives.
I mean, I'll be honest. I think we do have a lot of the cool things. I mean, there's so much technology that's come along that we can use. Like the fact that I can get on, this right here, and I can spread out like high definition video. You and I can go reach people all around the world. Like that's something. Like if we could actually get people to watch us, we could reach somebody on the other side of the world. And now, of course, now big tech does try to stop our kind of content from really spreading. So we're counting on your word of mouth to spread the idea and get people to watch the show, because we're not going to end up on the front page of YouTube, right? I mean, it's gonna take people watching the show and telling other people about it. But to sum it up, why do we do this show? It's because we can see all these quote unquote conspiracy theories that everybody has been talking about, especially since 2020. Like I said, to bring it back to even BoomerCon, like Glenn Beck talking about this stuff in 2020. Why do we bring it up? Because everything he's talking about and he's warning about, saying this is happening, and or you better watch out in Portland, or you better watch out in San Diego. Meanwhile, all the things that they're warning of eventually happening are already happening here, and we feel like we're protected from it because we're in
a little hick town.
Yeah.
In the middle of a mountain.
Yeah, and we're Republicans, and it's mostly Republicans guys, or Republican-ish or right-wing-ish guys that are telling you about all this stuff. So you feel like you're protected from it, but you're not. All the local people are doing this same stuff. They're taking all the money. They're putting in all the infrastructure. They're doing it with a red hat on. Mm-hmm. So that's why we do this show. We were trying to bring this, to everybody's attention that, even though the guys in our local offices and local mayors and local city councils, they talk like us, they act like us, and in some cases they may be like us, but I think, to bring it back to another movie, remember the mayor in Red Dawn? Mm-hmm. Yeah, remember how he acted? He was acting like he was on the sides of the citizens, but really he was just selling out this, to save his skin. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the way a lot of these local politicians think, is they see all this coming. The ones that are smart enough, the dumb ones, they're just taking the payola. And then there's the ones that are smart enough to see what's actually happened, but they're like, this is inevitable. I dare not stand in its way. I may as well benefit from it in some way and try to turn it to my advantage. So you got those two kinds of people in politics that are really selling all this stuff. And we got to have enough people aware that just because they're wearing a red hat does not mean they're on our side. So if you do want to look up the 8 predictions for the world in 2030, you should do that. But they talk about how you'll own nothing and be happy. All products.
Look at it in a savage way. It's like, 2,000 years ago, it's like, the ruler of the town says, if we don't throw a virgin into the volcano, we're all going to die.
No.
And when you look at that now, you fast forward and now you're like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
But then you look at this, and you're like, oh, okay. And it's like, it's the same thing.
Yeah, eventually, yeah. And that's for the carbon stuff, yeah, exactly. Because this time you're not only killing one virgin, you're like, oh, well, we're going to sacrifice a whole culture because we're going to save the economy or to save the environment. We're going to get rid of their whole way of farming, of agriculture, of all the way they've been feeding themselves, and we're going to move them into a small geographical area, and we're going to preserve all that geographical area for nature, and we're going to have, cricket farms where we make all the protein that people need, and soybean farms where we, plow the ground and kill millions of tiny animals in order to stop people from eating meat. And we're going to kill the trees.
Which that is actually the real reason why everyone's like, oh, the Amazon rainforest is on fire. It's not because of that. It's because they sell the farmland. The government sells the farmland. Well, they sell the rainforest to farmers to plant soy.
No. There you go.
That is the last time, whenever everyone freaked out a handful of years ago, which I don't even remember what year that was now, that the last time that the Amazon was on fire, and everyone's like, oh, we're killing the planet. Well, in a sense we are, because you're forcing them to put soy in everything and thinking that's the answer.
Well, they also say farewell hospital, hello homespital, right? So you don't need to go to the hospital anymore. We're just going to give you There's going to be less accidents due to self-driving cars. And preventive and personalized medding, scalpels and organ donors are out, and tiny robotic tubes and bioprinted organs in. Guess what else is in? The suicide booth. That's right. You could go on up to Canada, like Dave Chappelle. Remember his Chappelle show? He said, not feeling too well? Go on up to Canada and get yourself checked out." Not anymore, because then they'll stick you in a suicide booth. Well, have you thought about medical assistance in dying, sir? I know that foot has been really sore for you. We'd hate for you to get any worse. We'd be glad to off you. Hey, what's up, Spill? It's all for the mark of the beast. Yeah, you're right, Darren. It is, but it's like, I like in the Bible's part of the. I mean, okay, there's an inherent spiritual truth in the Bible. That's why it's so powerful. That's why if you watch something like the Book of the Eli, they really explain it good. It's used if you're going to use it for good or evil, you can do so because that spiritual truth is so powerful. But there's also a lot of it that is, it's like, especially if you get into the Book of Revelation and Isaiah and Daniel and all the prophecies and stuff, as far as there is a certain thing that happens to human civilizations when certain people get in power. When you have bad people get in power, it's like this fourth turning thing. It happens all the time. You have bad people get in power. There's certain things they want to do to subjugate the rest of society and maintain their hold on power and control. Those are all the things that we do in the beast system. And whether it's by having a tattoo, like whether you have to have a card, like, okay, like even back in the day, you could have a mark of the beast system back in ancient Rome because you maybe had to have a certain seal on a parchment to be able to do business. If you didn't have it, you couldn't do business. So you had to go subject yourself to the authority of the state in order to receive that, that pass. So the mark of the beast has come and gone many, many times. We'd have many marks of the beast. You have a mark of the beast right now, but it's not that you trade with dollar signs, because you could say that it's not dollar sign. It's a legal tender. You have to accept it as payment for a debt, right? So you have to be able to. It's the law enforces that you purchase things in dollars, right? Don't have any dollars, you can still purchase things in some ways, but you really can't participate in the economy at large. I can't go catch some fish and take them to Walmart and trade it for something else. I have to have dollars. So as far as that goes, that's just a monetary system. But the problem is when you have to go and get that thing to prove who you are and prove your affiliation before you use that service. So that's really when we get into the mark of the beast. And like I said, I think that's happened many times throughout the years. And I think that we are destined to face that again, because that's what that digital ID is that they were trying to put in 2020, and they backed off from it some because people recognized it for what it was, and had a lot of backlash against it. But they're still trying to push this thing just more subtly, and you've got right down to the local systems. They're setting it up, so you're going to have be a favored person to be able to interact with society. If you're not a favored person, they can cut you off from society. And as Canada shows, if you're too poor to eat or unhappy about it, they'd be glad to show you the way out.
On top of waiting 6 months to go to the doctor.
Yep. They throw the rock and hide the hand. Yep. Babylon and Rome, all the corrupt civilizations, they'd all do the same thing. Climax is a culture. Yeah, you're right. And if you go into it, like right when a culture, any successful like empire that collapses or successful culture that collapses, when things become comfy, they always begin to get this obsession with gender right before the downfall of it. And I think it really comes back again to the fourth turning. Like things get so easy in the society that you can basically survive doing whatever you want, including like where in a culture where normally it was dependent on a majority of the men and to be able to go and do, strong back jobs and things like this. And suddenly, like this culture is so good, civilization is so good, you don't really need that many men to do those jobs. So men stop doing those jobs and the men become soft. And then the society grows and there's not enough men who know how to do the things, or women, I'm talking people in general. There's not enough competent people who know how to keeps society going. So it collapses, and then eventually enough competent people, get in charge and start reorganizing things, that things start getting good again. But the same thing happens repeatedly throughout history, and when this happens, when things are good and they're about to fall apart and collapse, and shit hits the fan, it's almost always preceded by a discussion and an obsession with gender. And you go back to ancient Rome and several other different societies. When an empire is in decline, you're able to focus on that thing. You can't really focus on that if you're having to, fight to survive, to struggle to survive. There's no time to decide, well, do I feel like a man or a woman, or do I feel like there's, this even a question to be having, because there's things that have to be done in order for society to make it. So you don't have time to ask those questions, but as it gets easier, you do. And I think that's why you see those kind of things kind of come up before the decline at the time of a decline of a civilization. CBDC is the beast currency, the Fed coin. Yeah, well, that's certainly a possibility, Aaron. There's so many things it could be. I mean, it could be the CBDC, but again, do they really need the CBDC? They already have the digital dollar. Most of the dollar that we interact with, you rarely touch dollars. I mean, I've been using more cash, but like I pay my mortgage, I don't ever use a dollar bill. I deposit a check into the bank, and then I send the mortgage company a direct debit, and some numbers on my bank's computer screen go to the numbers on their computer screen. Mm-hmm. So that's already, the CBDC might be more consolidated, but it's essentially already happened. If they want to shut me off, like from the SWIFT payment system, like then my Visa won't work anywhere. If I'm cut out from the SWIFT, well, then everything that I run will just be like, no, you can't use that system. You can't run your Visa card. You can't run your MasterCard. So I wouldn't be able to pay with anything right now if they had, if they decided they wanted to cut me off like they did Russia. I'd only be able to do business with the BRICS nations. I'd have to go down to South Africa to, buy my chicken and dumplings. We're here. Yeah. We are. We really are. And it's happening on the local level. It's happening all around you. Mm-hmm. So why did I bring up Gamergate? Because there here recently there's been in the news what was the company called, Dustin? Shoot, I've already forgot. Sweet Baby. Sweet Baby. Yeah, so they're talking about Gamergate 2.0, but it's like it really would be more like Gamergate 7.0, because there's been several iterations of these scandals. And this one in particular, I don't know all the details of it, but people were complaining that there was a company that was consulting different video game franchises, and they were making them woke, or whatever you want to call it, but focusing on different gender identities, inserting them into games. And I don't think most people have a problem with, like, if you're playing it, like, I didn't hear any people really complain about something like Baldur's Gate 3, where you can be like a trans lizard alien. Like, you can be whatever you want on there, and you can bang whatever you want on there. But I don't think anybody really cares that in a role-playing game, or a game where you design a character, that you can design a character that looks and feels like you. I don't think that's what anybody's problem is, because most people, when they play a game where there's not a set character, they like to make the character like themselves. But then there are certain IPs that are like established franchises that have certain characters, that have certain behaviors and certain beliefs, and people are used to these things. And when you start changing them, like, for example, like, I think one of the big things was, like, they, used Harley Quinn to kill off Batman in one of the Arkham Asylum games. And, like, so people who really liked Batman are not going to appreciate this IP, and they, like, feel like that they're taking it personally, because Batman is the representation of the old world, the strong, smart, capable, rich man who is able to use all his advantages that he has in the world for good and help people. But we're going to, remove him as, and it gets kind of into like the queer theory thing, because the whole part of that is to, like, basically disrupt the order of society. More than, it doesn't matter really what the order of society is. If society was all gay people, then the queer pedagogy would be to destroy that and make it into something else. It's always revolting against the norm, whatever the norm may be. And so that's what a lot of people were talking about. This felt like with the Suicide Squad, because Harley represents that. That's the rebelling taking over, and it's basically ruining their IP. That's the thing. They don't like it. People who like Luke Skywalker didn't watch seeing him turn into a blue milk drinking pussy who, couldn't even help his friend. I mean, yeah. So you know what I'm saying. People don't watch Batman to see Batman get killed. So people were complaining about this because these are their classic. These are things they grew up with, and then you've got. People coming out and saying, well, what are you doing? Why do you care if people, get to play a game of a character that looks like them? Why do you care if, we reach out to marginalized communities? It's because you're encouraging marginalized communities to burn everything down and blaming everything existing for why they feel like they're marginalized. And is anybody really marginalized anymore? I mean, maybe some, but not like they used to be, for sure. And the problem that people have with it is everything that you enjoy is slowly getting kind of taken over by this virus. And you're like, I'm trying to play video games to get away from this, and then you're putting it in as like the subplot to my video game. Like, I'm trying to watch Batman, and now you're making it about, and it's not subtle. It's like, this is obviously, these stories are becoming more and more political, and it's obvious because they're not written by smart people in a lot of cases, and people don't want that in their games. And when they complain about it, and they say, "Oh, what are you, some kind of bigot, some kind of Nazi? You don't want trans people to be able to enjoy themselves in a game. You don't want black people to be able to play a character that looks like them." It's like, no, I just don't want you to totally change the things that I've enjoyed for my whole life and make them something that I don't enjoy anymore. And that's what it's more about, more than what color the character is or anything. But I wanted to go back to this Gamergate 1.0 and the shot heard around the world, and what I think is the most significant part about it that gets missed a lot of times, because the only thing you really hear about Gamergate, most people only really see it on the surface level of. There was, in 2014, a gamer published a blog in which he accused his ex-girlfriend, who was also a game developer, of cheating on him. And he said that her cheating on him was part of trading sex for good reviews for her video games that she was creating, right? And this started spreading out, and a lot of gamers started saying that, well, they really felt like a lot of these game journalists, that was like maybe why a lot of these games were getting good reviews when gamers were reading, in Game Informer or IGN or, all these different PC Gamer magazine, and all these reporters are saying, oh, these are great games, and they're playing it like, what, this sucks. So they're like, okay, what's going on here? Is everybody just trading sex for good reviews for their games? And that's not really what it was. What it really turned down to is there was there was an ideology that was being passed along through these reviewers, and if certain games didn't meet this ideology, then they weren't given bad reviews. And a lot of it was like stuff that we now recognize as DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and that was just which a lot of times it can be good. Like I said, having the ability to play whatever character you want, sure, that's a good thing. Let's make that open to everybody. But why did they really want to do that? Did they do it just because they wanted us to enjoy things? No, they didn't. What we really want to get back down to is when people were starting to bring this up, they were really shut down. That's what caused the Gamergate, because when they started pointing these things out, they were getting shut down online and getting canceled and getting their posts blocked and all this stuff. And so it was like drew attention to it. And so you had a bunch of what they call them self-autists online who were really digging into this thing, and they found a lot of political media came into the thing, and eventually it went all the way up to the United Nations. And one of the things that I think I'm going to skip most of this, but I do want to get down. And if you look at this, I'm going to got an article on here that I'm showing you some stuff from. This is Gamergate, the shot heard around the world. This is on quitefrankly.tv, and it's written by John Carroll. And it's quite a long piece, and we're not going to read all of it, but he goes back into the background of Gamergate and everything it is, and then he connects, all these different agencies that are a part of Digra, which was like the digital, I can't even remember what it stands for here. Let's look here. Well, it's not even letting me zoom in on the photo. But if you can read the article, it's at quitefrankly.tv. Again, called Gamergate. You can get into all this stuff. But the mission of Digra is to figure out how video games can be used to control people, then repackage that knowledge for consumption by making it seem positive and needed. So, the deconstruction of gamer identity was done to make video games attractive to people of all backgrounds, right? So that's part of what's going on. Like, we want to make it attractive to everybody of all backgrounds. But why to do that? Because they want to get a larger percentage of the population playing video games. Well, why do they want that? Because video games were set to become an important component of Common Core, the agenda to force working class Americans into a single educational standard. And just as the gaming media used the information gathered by Digra to influence public opinion, lobbyists use that information to promote Common Core legislation in Congress. This two-pronged approach engineered the government to provide what the public was engineered to demand. The money trail left behind these efforts leads to an organization, the Quite Frankly audience, and as well as the Iron Mountain Hour audience, has become intimately familiar with over the past few years. According to the 2014 Washington Post article, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation didn't just bankroll the development of what became known as Common Core state standards. With more than $200 million, the foundation also built political support across the country, persuading state governments to make systemic and costly changes. The foundation's Wikipedia pages further explains, as part of its education-related initiatives, the foundation has funded journalists, think tanks, lobbying organizations, and governments. So, taking over the education, just like the Rockefellers did, the medical system and the education in the early 20th century, Bill Gates is doing a similar thing in the 21st century and using video games. And if you noticed, okay, every study we've ever done on children learning and children using screens shows that they are bad for them with prolonged use. Even if you're using it for education, it is not good for a child's brain to be constantly on a screen. It's not good for anybody's brain, but it's particularly bad for children to be stuck on a screen all day. But what have we done since 2020? Everything they do is on the computer now,
and especially touch screens.
Yep.
Like, because young children, touch screens, like the touching, it's like it does dopamine levels.
Yeah.
So they do that, and that makes them more addicted to it.
Yeah, you get a little click and you feel
And
the
then it's like
vibration.
you don't have the capability of interacting with physical things. It makes physical interactions more difficult in their developing brains.
Aaron says the slow boil the frog and doesn't even know it's boiled until it's dead. You're right. We will pay with the chip, and let's just say jaywalk and facial recognition catches you. Your CBDC is deducted. And if you don't have a chip, the mark, you can't stand it at the register. Therefore, you can't buy or sell or trade without the mark. Yeah, that's right. It'd be like in Idiocracy, where he's like, "Where's your tattoo? Where's your tattoo?" He's like, can't even find the button to push because he's so scared of the guy without the tattoo, because that person has been otherized. And that's basically what they want to do, is otherize us to where if you don't have that, well, first of all, you have no real reason to interact with you. Like, there's no way I can help you with anything. I can't give you any money because I have a chip and you don't. I can't give you any food because that's a crime. It's a crime for me to offer you anything without you participating in this system, because even a charity, then you'd have to have, you just like you have to have a registered charity in order for me to be able to give you a donation right off my taxes. You would have to have like a registered charity to be able to feed people, just like they don't let people, they take perfectly good food and have to throw it away from a restaurant because it's against regulation for them to give it to people.
That one fella in Florida that's been arrested how many dozens of times for feeding, homeless people?
Yeah.
It's like he goes, and the cops come, shut him down, arrest him, take him to jail. He gets out of jail, he does it again. Something like that. Like everyone's like, oh, we need to help homeless people. This man's helping homeless
Yep.
people, and then the state says no.
Yep. Well,
because they say that's illegal, you can't do that. And like you said, like they can't just give the old food away; they have to throw it away.
well, they to put it right down to it, I think it comes down to they want everybody to participate in video games. They want everybody to learn from video games. They're going to start you at the youngest age, Candy Crush, Roblox, Minecraft. Get you in that thing very young. And I love video games. I play video games. I go through spells where I play them like crazy for about 6 months, and then I probably won't play them for a while, and then I'll, play almost every day when I get done with my work or winding down, but they want you doing that all the time. They want you pretty much just on video games. They want you living in eventually your, Oculus set or your Apple Vision Pro. Those things are $3,500 now, but so were flat screen TVs when they first came out. The first plasma screen TVs I saw were like 20 grand back in probably like 96, 98. They were like 20 grand for a flat screen. And it wasn't long at all. They were down to $2,000. And now they're down to $200.
Up until the cusp of the millennium, like home computers.
Yeah.
Like this archaic, in today's terms, this archaic thing that you would never think would be a computer cost 3 or 4 times more than your crappier.
Yeah.
Like, the crappy $200 laptop you can buy at Walmart is exponentially more powerful than the $2,000-$3,000 home PC was back in the early 90s, late 80s.
And it has been, Ray Kurzweil was on, I think it was Joe Rogan that he was on the other day, but he was explaining how it's been steady. Technology develops on a curve, and they're on a straight line almost. And we can follow that straight line from the very beginning of computing all the way to right now, and it has very little deviation. So we can predict where we're going to be, pretty well based on where we are now and where we've been. So technology grows exponentially or logarithmically. Mm-hmm. It does not grow like 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, and then you get a steady, like very, very slow. No, it goes because it builds off of itself. So eventually, they're counting on us reaching a point where we've been called a singularity very frequently. We have the AI singularity, where the AI is powerful enough to basically run everything, and the AI kind of becomes self-aware, or it becomes intelligent enough that it does not require input from human beings anymore. And a lot of these elites, and Alex Jones can tell you where the receipts of these are. I've seen them, but honestly, I don't have them right now. I wasn't planning on talking to them tonight. But a lot of them, they talk about how they believe that they are using technology to pull in entities from another side, and that's what they're creating here. Now, I don't know I don't remember exactly where he says this, but I've seen some of this stuff, and it's pretty interesting when you consider it, that we're wanting to use these things to replace all our senses, plugging our eyes, our ears, our sense of touch, our sense of, we want us having a virtual girlfriend or a robot girlfriend with a virtual reality personality. These things are coming on, basically to basically satisfy all our human desires with synthetic versions of what we actually need and want, so that we stay out of the way, so that the quote unquote worthy or good humans, or the master, master class, we'll say, the Ubermenches, the dream of all those eugenic and Nazi societies, that's what their ultimate goal was to perfect humanity. And like, what's his name? Nietzsche? Is it Nietzsche? Nietzsche was really the goal, was to perfect humanity, and whatever was necessary for that was secondary to the ultimate goal of creating this race of supermen who would basically be the Ubermensch. Yeah, it was Nietzsche. Mm-hmm. To basically take humanity to the next level. But first, the guy got to rid all the undesirables. That's what's holding us back. So that's kind of the whole idea, is to perfect humanity, and that logical conclusion. You get down like the Malthus and the ability of, we can't feed everybody, so we've got to get rid of them for their own good. And that's when it comes right down to it. There's not a lot of new ideas under the sun. They're just new ways of implementing them. And all these are ancient philosophical ideas that we just chew up over and over again and keep going back to. We know they don't work, but they do allow people to take power and use it. So anyway, we've gone on a lot longer than I meant to. Let's catch up in the chat here. Let's see. Video games distracted me a lot of my youth from music and other goals and ambitions. I barely play them now, but I still love GTA and Wreckfest. Yeah. And I've also said that, and they also use LHC and supercomputers. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. I think it's part of it, man. It's all part of one. It's all part of one system that they're building. And even if the parts weren't designed to go together, eventually they will go together. Like Dustin, let's say, has a Mac, and I have PC. I can still send him an email. Even those things weren't really designed to work together, but eventually people found a way to make them work together. I guess they were made. That's maybe not a good example, because the iMac was made to really work in context with the existing computer systems. But you know what I'm saying is, like, they take different systems that were developed independently of one another and find ways to make them work together. And they've done this with so many different systems. And not only that, it's all these different systems that are working together are all coming from the top down, all over the world. They're using them. And they're combining them all over the world. And they're doing it here right in your backyard. So, with that said, it's been almost 2 hours. We're going to have to get off here. I appreciate y'all sticking with us for this long. Please be sure and go to the Rumble. Please be sure and go to the X. Please be sure and go to the YouTube. Follow, share, subscribe. Come back every Sunday and Thursday so we can get into another discussion. And appreciate everybody joining us.
I've never joined. Don't think we're wanting to be a bunch of troglodytes that don't want technology.
No, I love technology.
This stuff, it's like, these concepts are fascinating things. It's just, like, if you go back and look, like we've reiterated, it's the ones that are implementing them.
Yep.
The people that are making, it's like, okay, what about the human augmentation and stuff, just briefly. It's like, that's so cool to be able to a point that we could have that, but then the ones that are footing these million and billion-dollar bills to make these techs,
yep.
What are they getting back out of it? Like,
I would love to have like jetpack legs. If I trusted that the person that put the computer system in my body to control them wasn't just going to off me with it or turn me into an automaton.
Or basically put an end to be like, oh, if you try to, even it can make that even worse. It's like, hey, if you have thoughts that are different than what we want, we're going to disable your systems.
Yep. Or if you try to travel outside the band, if you try to travel for too long, we're going to cut off your system. Or if you try to, like Dustin said, think crazy thoughts, well, then you can't buy stuff because we've got a monitor in your brain and we'll correct those thoughts for you real quick. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways it could be abused. And there's a lot of ways that it could be used for good without being abused.
There are so many ways it could be used for good.
If we just wouldn't allow people to force it on us. That's the main thing. Is all this stuff is being done without people's consent and knowledge, and it is being backed up with the force of government and prevents you from really having any recourse in it. So, again, it's all cool stuff. I love the ideas.
Well, like the independent scientists that have done, to help amputees where they now have hands that are like bionic hands that they can actually take their stump and use it with beta waves from their brain to actually control.
Yeah.
And use the motions of twitching the skin to be able to control a hand. And they're getting to points where they can play like freaking guitars and stuff now. You can make chord shapes. Yeah,
dude, I wanted to have virtual reality since I was a kid. I was like, I couldn't wait until there was virtual reality, and now it's available and you can play it and it's awesome. But I don't want to live in it. I don't want to be forced to live in it or not be able to survive. I don't want my whole way of life to be removed, and the only way to approximate the way of life to which I'm accustomed is to put on a headset and fake it, because it's been intentionally destroyed. Mm-hmm. In order to enrich and empower a small handful of people who have, basically had we think there's not people out there, madmen, trying to dominate the world. That never stopped just because they quit making.
Happened.
Yeah, They quit making black and white Superman cartoons, but the villains are still real. But with that said, yeah, definitely. Aaron said, "I love technology too. It's a shame demonic buffoons control it." Yeah, and I really appreciate y'all joining us tonight. I swear I only had one glass of wine, but I feel like I couldn't talk tonight, and it was only like this much. So I don't. I guess it's the wine, but man, I couldn't hardly talk tonight. And I appreciate you sticking with me. I have to go back to liquor because usually that doesn't bother my speaking.
Except for the couple times.
Yeah, except for one of the times I drank too much accidentally. But man, I barely had a drink of wine. But I appreciate y'all joining us, and we will definitely be back on this Thursday. Aaron and I are going to get into the news and current events for the week, and Dustin and I will be back on this Sunday, and I'm hoping we'll be able to get Tim back in with us for too long.
I might not be here this Sunday, depending. I might have a shoot. I might be covering a show.
Well, I hope you do. Much as I don't want to do the show without you, it'd be nice for you to
go out and actually get to create some more of art.
Yeah.
Which I got to actually shoot a wedding today.
Oh, cool.
One of my best friends, he got married, and we did it on top of the mountain and a Christmas tree farm.
Wow. All right. Well, congratulations to you. Want to shoot them out?
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations.
Cole and Bree.
Yeah, okay. Congratulations, Cole and Bree.
It was pretty freaking cool. It's like we were getting up there like, man, this weather's not going to cooperate. It's just going to be like stupidly uncloudy and like nasty, harsh light.
Yeah.
But then it was just like, it was gorgeous like 70% of the time. Like
awesome.
The perfect condition for it. Besides it being kind of cold and the wind blowing 800 miles an hour.
All right. Well, congratulations, Cole and Bree, and we hope you'll join us again. We are organizing in the very near future. We're going to do before we're going to do the trail riding, before we do the shooting. I mean, the Iron Mountain Hour target shooting that we're talking about doing in the group. You know, not just so nobody gets any wrong ideas. Before we get into that, we're go to the shooting range together and to film a video there. We are going to do a trash cleanup as soon as they get this opened up here and it's warm enough to do it. So we're talking about within a month we're going to do this. If you want to get with us at the Iron Mountain Hour at gmail.com, we're going to go clean up some area around the Appalachian Trail at Watauga Lake. It's a place where there's the trail around the lake it goes all the way around the lake, and the first about 2 miles of it has just been totally trashed. So we're gonna probably go clean up about the first half mile of it where it's really really bad. And I think if we can get like 10 people down there, that would be awesome. And we've got way more than that. When we did our first shooting range event, we had probably 15 people at that. So I'm sure we can get 10 people to come and help clean up the place that we enjoy. And, I'll provide gloves and trash bags, and, everybody can just go down there and help pick up all this crap and make the place worth enjoying again. So really appreciate you joining us again for the last time. I'll say that, and we will see you on Thursday. Everybody have a good night.